I'd like to call to order the Concord Township Zoning Commission of Tuesday, November 5th, which is also Election Day this year. Heather, would you call the roll?
Mr. Wortel?
Yes.
Mr. Terriaco?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
And Mr. Ruppert?
Yes. Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes. The minutes are not here, so we're going to have to table the approval of those minutes for September, October. And next month is going to add into November. So, correspondence. Frank?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. John?
None.
None. Ron?
None.
None here, so we have no correspondence. Heather, zoning inspector report?
I do not have a report this evening.
No report.
Thank you.
This is going to be a record short meeting, right?
We might
Here we
beat that
go.
record. 13 minutes.
Okay, public participation. This is intended for anybody from the public that is not part of the new business or the old business. Anybody there? Okay. New business. It says here, establish a designated final date for completion of the sidewalk in accordance with the agreement between Concord Township Zoning Commission and the IN9 Group LLC for the property located on Old Cryle and Cryle Road, being parcel number 08-A-020-0-00-048-0. Okay. Let's open it up. Anybody have any discussion? From the audience? If you would, stand up, state your name and your address for the record.
Good evening, John Nekic, 6814 Evergreen Place, Concord Township, Ohio, 44077.
John, what's your last name? I'm sorry.
Nekic, N-E-K-I-C.
Thank you.
Okay. I am in charge and actually the owner of the I9 project there in Old Cryle, New Cryle, Little Mountain Creamery, and Johnny's Auto Spa. We met a year ago regarding this situation regarding the sidewalks, so we all agreed that we will absolutely build a sidewalk when it's necessary. A few stipulations we all agreed to when the pedestrian road was in demand, which surrounding infrastructure connections, appropriate sidewalk connections on adjacent properties, or 5 years from date. Since the last time we met, none of those have changed. I am from Concord. I live just down the street. I'm very proud to be part of this. No one in their right mind would have built what I built, spent this kind of money. I'm proud of where I live, and I'm proud of this community. So I went over and beyond to make this place beautiful. I am for a sidewalk. It just makes no sense. Unless you're going to parachute people in, I'm not sure where they're going to be coming from. We have 44, you have Cryle. These are all busy streets, and there's not a sidewalk in sight. So nothing has changed since our last meeting. I think the timing of this is bizarre. You waited till I finished the project. You waited till I put in the landscaping, sprinklers, let the grass grow in, and now you want me to do a sidewalk. I'm not sure. I just have a few other projects that I'm planning in Concord. They're going to be just as big, but I'm a team player. We got to be on the same team. I'm not going to invest this kind of money if this is going to happen over and over. I want to build a sidewalk. I just don't want my sidewalk to be 5 years old when my neighbor builds it and it looks ugly. I'm all about looks. That's why those buildings are so spectacular. I'm open to any suggestions or constructive criticism. I'm not opposed to a sidewalk, just not now. So, any questions or anything?
When?
When?
Yeah.
You tell me. When my neighbor gets it, when the people across the street build something, when makes sense. If you go there now, that point, Old Cryle, New Cryle, is so dark. You want to put a sidewalk in and bait people in to walk down that street with those big ditches? It doesn't make sense right now. And I think the buildings are stunning. I think sidewalk would be stunning as well. But it doesn't make any sense now. How do they get there? From what sidewalk do they cross to get to my sidewalk? So I'm not sure what to say, guys. Any suggestions or anything you have for me? Again, at our last meeting, one of the members said This makes no sense. It's a sidewalk to nowhere. I agree. So, and nothing's changed with this year, so I'm not sure why we're doing this again. But again, I follow the rules, and whatever you guys decide, we'll go by. But I just think it's premature. I think it's dangerous. Unless, any questions, or what do I?
How long would it take to design a sidewalk?
I don't think it's a big deal. First, I think you guys made a mistake because we have to move all the fire hydrants. So I'm not sure what happened there. This is not a small project. This is a big deal. All the fire hydrants are in the way. So, however, previously you guys designed this project to have sidewalks, whoever put the hydrants in didn't take that into consideration. So I don't know. I'm not a builder. I'm a physician. You guys tell me how long it'll take. You know better than I do.
Has there been any conversation as far as the planning of the sidewalk? And I'm aware the fire hydrants are in the way, and then probably underground. If you were to develop that plan to install those hydrants, reaching out to the fire department to ask for approval of removing the hydrants or relocating, and also paying the water department for that process, how long do you think that process would take?
I don't know.
With your working in the trades and stuff like that.
Show me.
So Dustin Keeney with Polaris Engineering and Surveying, 34600 Chardon Road, Willoughby Hills, Ohio 44094. And we did the civil site planning work for the project. So going back through the history, there was a point in time where there was no sidewalks, and then there was a comment that sidewalks were required in the Capital District. So when we started designing the sidewalks, that's when we realized that when they redid and realigned the roads and all that stuff, it's very challenging because the hydrants are right where the sidewalks typically would go, just along the edge of the right of way, and then between where the sidewalk would go and the roadway goes is a ditch section. So I know that typically when you see sidewalks along a roadway section, there's storm sewers, there's not ditches, which, so usually I think the ditches, cause potentially a safety issue, if folks happen to step off the sidewalk, like you mentioned, It's dark, you have, some of it is a safety concern. But to answer, we did at one point in time before the agreement to postpone the sidewalks, we had come up with a plan I guess there's two alternates. We could either move all the hydrants, or we could jog the sidewalk around the hydrants and leave the hydrants in place, which would probably be more economical than moving the hydrants. But the challenge there is with the ditch. When you jog the hydrants around, then we're going to have to put culverts in the ditches because to get the grading to work. So it is quite and it would. So from a design perspective, it's something that we could probably get designed in a couple of days and go through the process, but it would be quite a project for them to go.
So that would take quite a bit of time to go through that process. And how the number of hydrants are there, where that number came from, I'm not sure, right? So speaking from my past career, I'm not sure where that number came from. It is a large amount of hydrants. So it really behove you to contact the fire department and water department to see if you could, what your options would be for that, right? I would strongly do that. We're just looking at that time frame of what that would be, a couple months, because the decisions won't be made, right away to do that. And then as far as if you remove the hydrants, are you allowed to put the sidewalk over the water lines or anything like that? So
right, it gets complicated a little bit because where the hydrants are right now, they're just inside of the public right of way. So if we move the hydrants back, then they wind up being on private property, because to be behind the sidewalk, they would wind up being on the private property of the ice cream store. And if you move them forward, then they wind up in the ditch. So it's one of those. Right. It's one of those goofy situations where it would take some coordination with the fire department, and it's just one of those things that hindsight's always 20/20, but it doesn't seem like it was set up for sidewalks, quite frankly.
Instead of jogging out towards the road, why don't you jog back. It's been done in manner. If you go up Little Mountain, you'll see a hydrant, and the sidewalk comes here, jogs, and then back.
And we could look at that. I know it would be challenging along the section where the detention basin is, you know, just because to get the grading for the detention basin, you run into the same issue where you start jogging in, and that's the slope where the detention basin, you know.
Dustin, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt you. Is it it'd be a public sidewalk, correct?
No, yeah.
Right?
Correct,
So
yes.
it has to stay in the right of way, correct?
And unless there was some sort of an agreement where they got easements,
Right.
I mean, probably anything's possible from a legal,
But it has to stay-
typically they're supposed to be in the public.
It's designed
right-of-way.
in the public right of way, right? So, and that's where the fire hydrants are at in the public right of way,
Correct,
correct?
right.
Okay, so that's more than likely, in my assumption, you know, having been in the business a bit, that's why the need for the movement of the fire hydrants, because it's got to remain in the public right of way unless there was an easement given.
Right.
Now, again, I wasn't a part of this board or commission when you guys put this agreement together, but I did read through it. And by the way, I want to tell you, I think you did a phenomenal job. I will say that. I live right on Grove Road. I pass it every day. You did a very, very well done job. And I don't know if you have to get up and answer this question or not, but you did say you're not opposed to putting the sidewalk at some point.
Eventually, yes.
Right, so that it's still in good faith, you'll put the sidewalk in when the items that are in this agreement that you guys have put together are there, right? And so the question I have is, you know, for us, and maybe you can help me out here, Heather, and I don't know, you know, drafting this, but there are some criteria that have to be met for the sidewalk to go in, right? Pedestrian load, necessary connections, appropriate sidewalk connections to the adjacent properties. And have we done, I mean, I'm assuming you guys haven't done any studies on that or said, hey, is there any pedestrian load in the area? And we're not gonna do that. So we don't find it safe to assume, I mean, I live there too. I know I see some joggers go up and down Kyle Road, but they're typically on the other side. Nothing connecting, right? So I guess, do we have to do those kind of studies? Like there's a traffic study, is there a pedestrian load study that would need to be done? I guess that's my question. If we're asking them to meet requirements, and that's my input on it. You know, I mean, I'm looking. If you give requirements, then you have to meet those requirements to say, hey, it's time to put a sidewalk in.
And on that, just throwing in a question, I guess, I don't know if the township has a master plan as far as what the sidewalk network for that capital district is eventually supposed to do, or how it's supposed to work, or what. So obviously there's residents, you know, a little bit south, you know, in Quail, but the interesting thing is there's no sidewalks in there. So it's like there's no sidewalks in there, and then
Where does it go to?
So, I mean, I think John's willing to invest in sidewalks. It's just, let's try to make sure that it makes sense with how things are gonna network. You know, is the ultimate goal to get over to the other side of 44 where Sheets is, or to be able to go north, or to go south? I don't know if there is, and maybe there's not, and, you know, so.
So there's, it is April 4th of 2023. So this is now a year and a half old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just opened up one. You just said you're going to open it.
2 weeks ago,
2
and
weeks ago.
we've yet to have anyone walk.
Right,
I mean,
not
ice cream
yet.
is a family thing. People come with their children, they drive in, enjoy the ice cream, sit outside, enjoy the fire, and they drive home. But we've yet to have anyone walk in. I'm not sure where they would come from.
And I think with that, I think to that point, the last thing we want to do is put a sidewalk that's going to, you know, take people to the point at the south, or what, you know what I mean, and cause them to wind up somewhere that's even, you know, that's putting them in a dangerous situation. I think we want to make sure that it's thought through and that it's properly thought out.
Dustin, what would be the approval process? Would it have to go through planning? So would that have to go through planning commission, Lake County? Because it's the right of way, right? So if they designed a sidewalk, which has to be in the public right of way, It's not designed yet. Okay, so, you know, when they did their development plan, there was no sidewalk designed correctly, right? Or correct?
I think the way that we covered it was, there is a note on the set of plans that indicates when it's time for the sidewalks, they have to be approved through the county engineer's office. I don't know specifically if it would necessarily have to go to planning commission.
Okay.
But I think it would have to go through a process.
Design review?
At least,
By the engineer, yeah.
go.
Good evening. My name is Carter Edmond. I'm an architect. I'm the director of design for Bruce Brothers Construction. We're the design builder for this project. I would want to reiterate everything that's been said here, and of course, all in favor of walkable streets and so forth. But you know, I agree with all the statements about the practicality of this at this point. The permitting process for sidewalks working the right of way varies a lot by jurisdiction. So I would imagine the building permits are by the county. I imagine this would be the county engineer, but there may be an additional level of your review or planning commission review. It depends on how you have it set up. So it varies a lot by jurisdiction. But it would go through a couple of levels of review, including the county engineer.
I'd also add, our hours are open to 9 o'clock. It is so dark out there right now. And I think till the infrastructure is in place where there are sidewalks everywhere and people could comfortably walk from every direction, it makes sense. But right now, it's so dark, and to have any family with children walking down that street, I'd be terrified. That's the last thing I want for something like that to happen.
So the only business you get right now is basically driving, right?
It's all
People driving in,
It's all driving.
picking up the product and then leaving. You don't have anybody walking down the street, like you said, to come in and buy ice cream, right?
Ice cream's a fun thing. People come with their families and children. They come in, they sit by the fire. It's a nice thing. But to actually go for a walk, I couldn't imagine. It's so dark, and where would you possibly be coming from?
And I think, Johnny, they're looking for the future of the development too. Yeah, I mean that's where this commission has to look at is the future, right? So yes, right now, okay, but yeah, I think that we have to plan for now, for later too, right? So and you guys know that, everybody knows that. So I think that's probably the commission's, maybe, we have to plan for the future as well.
Like I said, I'm not opposed. I just think timing is a little bit off.
Could you take time to go ahead and do the studies that are necessary, like with the possible moving the plugs or not, or what it would cost, and things of that nature, to be prepared? So when the time comes, you could bite the bullet and say, okay, we're ready to go. So I think that's
I think
Yeah.
that's what
Because
I.
in the agreement, the size and scope of what shall be determined by both parties. So we
Right.
don't even have that
Right.
in front of us to
Sure.
make that decision to give an adequate time, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think do your due diligence on the design, do the due diligence on the time frame of the approval process. I think you should put a cost analysis together so that this board understands the magnitude of this commission understands the magnitude of what you're putting in there. And take into consideration, what you're talking about with that sidewalk going in, by the detention basin.
Exactly, yeah.
All those things into consideration. I think that's a great idea. And then come back.
Well, that's what I would like to see. This way here, it's already been done up front. You
Right.
know what it is, and as the development continues with other establishments coming in, where they would be put together now, customers going from one to the other, they would need the sidewalk at that point, to me. And that then would make sense to say, okay, now we've seen what's happened.
No, it's
The fire plugs are whatever they have to be, spaced out accordingly to the other establishments, and then we're ready to go.
Moving fire plugs is not easy.
No, I'm putting lines
It's
in.
not easy.
That's not easy.
That's some infrastructure.
And another thing, we talk about darkness. I would think we'd also want to know about lighting.
What is that?
Is there adequate enough lighting for people like now when it's dark and you're still open? How would they get there? Would at that point they would need the sidewalks to walk from one establishment to the other if the appropriate lighting was there too, to keep them away from walking in the street. So if that can all be basically done and concept be ready to go, I would be in favor of doing something like that.
So I guess just a question from the process. So there is a note specifically that was on the plan that says all future sidewalk improvements shall be approved by Concord Township and Lake County engineer and be constructed per Lake County specifications, design and construction of public sidewalk. Okay. So not to get lost into the semantics of it, but when we talk about Concord, would that be working with Heather's office, or would that be the service, or would that be with you folks, or?
We get the service of the Lake County engineers.
Right.
They are the ones that get involved in this because they give us the insight. They provide us with reports
Right.
that we look at for us to make a decision. We don't have an engineering staff, okay?
Okay.
So we can't do something like that. So you would have to put your plan together and then submit it to the Lake County engineers. All the appropriate departments would be contacted, like the fire department.
Right.
They would all have their input.
Right, but we have to meet the intent of the zoning code,
That's
right?
correct.
So would that be, I guess, you folks or
Yeah,
Heather?
Both.
Both.
That would be
Okay.
us.
I just want to make if we kind of go down this road that we.
Sure.
And I think we're happy to evaluate what's going on along our frontage. I don't know that we should be getting into evaluating what's going on beyond. That's where I guess I'm
Talking
talking
about the lighting?
Oh, no, I
the
don't.
lighting and again, how you analyze, you're still gonna end up with a sidewalk to no, with no, and you can't predict the future, we can't predict the future, so how do we know?
I think if I'm understanding correctly, what you're asking for is not for the property owner to conduct the traffic studies and all of that, but to do essentially a conceptual cost estimate.
Correct.
What it would take to install a
Correct.
future
Correct.
sidewalk.
Correct.
And reach out to the fire department,
Sure.
the
Yeah.
water department, to start what that process will look like.
Because I think there's probably more to that than what most people are assuming that there is.
Right.
Having been involved in the past myself, I will tell you that I know it's not easy to move fire plugs.
Right.
So I know that what we, just moving them here or there, 5 feet is a lot sometimes. But I think getting that due diligence and that homework done, coming back and saying, okay, now we have this, and there's time frames with that, right? So I think I can understand that time frame, and it's not just lickety split. 2 days. If you could design 2 days, then that would be.
That's just getting something on paper.
I understand.
There's a lot that
I
happens
understand
after
that.
that. So
Right. No, I understand that.
Right.
I would do more than looking at fire hydrant replacement. I would be more inclined to hump the sidewalk.
Right.
I've seen it before. Not that, it's a sidewalk.
Right.
It's not a fire, fire hydrants are gonna be 10 times more expensive, maybe 20.
Right.
So
So is that then a silly question? Is there other sidewalks in the township? I would imagine somewhere. Does the service department plow the sidewalks? I guess
So,
that's where I want to. Do we need to get input about if they're going to plow them to keep them clean? Do we need to get their input on?
well, so to answer the first part of the question, there is a sidewalk in front of Sheets on Capitol Parkway.
Right.
Capitol Parkway, that's a township road. I do not believe that our service department clears that. Cryle Road would be a county road.
Okay.
County engineer and some previous conversations that we had early on back when this was originally came up, they would likely not
Okay.
keep that clear as
Just
well.
from the design
Yeah.
brain, making
Yeah.
sure that
Yeah.
if they have to clean them, that we don't do something that their
Yeah.
plow can't do. So. Okay.
anything else from the board?
Not for me, Mr. Chairman.
Not for me.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so just to remind the board and our guests, the issue before the zoning commission this evening is to establish a date. There's already been a vote on October 1st to enact this part of the agreement. What I'm hearing is that you'd like to table this until they can come back with additional information and then reconsider this date. Is that what I'm hearing, Mr. Chairman?
I would like to get more information coming back to the board with respect to the timing, and, you know, the cost is not an issue for us. It is for you, but, you know, timing for the design and timing for the installation. So if we want to do what Frank says, you know, cock it and we're ready to go, we have that information available. But I'd like that information coming back to the board so some of the other members can use that input to set a date that we can all agree upon.
And I urge you on that too, is when you speak with the county engineers, is to get what they're expecting as the approval process as well, and their timeline. I would urge you with that. Because what I don't want to see you guys do is get yourself into a pickle, or us as the zoning commission saying, hey, we have to enforce this, and the timeline goes beyond that. So let's not muddy up the waters with that. And I'm sure that they will be more than willing to say, hey, this is, I mean, you go through, you have this meeting, then this meeting, and then finally, whatever it takes to get to that, I think that would be part of your due diligence as well.
Okay. Anything else from you folks, gentlemen?
So your next meeting is December 3rd. Are you asking them to collect that information and have it prepared for the December 3rd meeting?
Is that possible?
Or do we need to look at the beginning of 2025 to have?
Short period of time, it's too much work.
That's too much.
How much time do you think you would need to meet with the stakeholders and the county and come back with more of a complete plan? Is that 60 days? Is that 90 days?
And it depends on how valuable they are.
Understanding we've got a few holidays.
I was going to say,
With the holidays, I would probably say 90 days to,
So if you did that, then it would take you to what, February?
February.
The February meeting?
Yeah.
and you're also going to have a better expectation of what
You're obviously
you're
not
moving
gonna-
in. Yeah, you're moving into the better time to plan for construction season 2. I'm not saying you're going to start it. I'm saying you're coming back to us with the information, John.
I just have 2 other projects I'm considering here. This is gonna put a huge damper on. I'm a team player.
So am I. I think we all are here.
And that's what I expect from my community.
And I think that's what we're trying to give you too. Is this board today? I mean, I think there might have been. I think we're trying to be the same team player and say, hey, that I would compliment you highly on what you've done over there. I'm a client. I've already washed my cars multiple times there. It's great. I think it's great for this community. I think it's a great asset to this community. And I think we're trying to be a team player here too with you to give you some time to get your homework done, to due diligence done, and then come back and get evaluated at that point.
That's fair.
Okay.
So Heather, from how far ahead of the meetings do you usually like to have stuff just so you can distribute it so that they're, I mean, obviously we'll come back and present, but
Usually I mail packets a week prior to a
week prior.
meeting.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you're gonna table this, we'll need to do a motion to table it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a
And
motion too.
then I think the motion should be clear as to what expectation as far as what information is gonna come back. Because the idea is that when that comes back, the commission is gonna have to make a determination as to a date of completion. Because that's the only thing that's on this right now for consideration. And it could be, you don't have to decide it at the February meeting, but at least you should have the information, so would somebody write down what information we're gonna expect them to bring back? You're gonna talk to the county, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna talk to the fire department,
Water department,
Or determine.
county engineers,
what was that?
county engineers.
Yeah.
Right. And then Are you gonna give a couple of different options of what?
We can give some options of potentially relocating the hydrants, trying to go in front of the hydrants, trying to go behind. You know, we could look at it a couple different ways.
Right. Okay. Mr. Chairman, is that acceptable to you?
You guys okay with that?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
John, would you make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'm not gonna tell you to.
No, sure. I'll make a motion. So I gotta get this
You're gonna
right.
make a motion to table for consideration the final date of completion on this project for the sidewalks until the February meeting, so that the developer can come back with information on alternatives to where to put the sidewalk, having spoken to the county engineers, the fire department, the water department, and health. So that's your motion?
That's my
So
motion.
moved.
That's your
That's my motion.
So moved.
I motion what he said. Do I have to say all those words?
You don't have to
Okay.
say all that.
I make a motion to table this table this item on the agenda until the February meeting.
Right.
So that the developer can do his due diligence and meet with the necessary stakeholders to provide the necessary information for us for the commission to then try to establish
A completion.
a completion date.
Amen.
Do I have a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? Motion is passed. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Just for point of clarification, Heather, you normally take a roll call vote?
It depends. We probably would have. Yeah, yeah. But I
Mr.
don't,
Chairman, if it's okay with you, can I ask Heather to do a roll call?
Yes. We can do a roll call.
Just to make sure, it's not gonna change the vote, I just wanna make sure that the record is corrected so that there's no question as to what the board's doing.
Mr. Wertel,
Yes.
Mr. Terriaco,
Yes.
Mr. Reppert,
Yes.
and Mr. Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you in a couple months.
Hey, thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. On to old business.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Work session to review proposed zoning text amendments as outlined in a memo dated July 30, 2024, for modifications to district uses. With a short attendance here, I would like to entertain a motion to table that work session until next month.
Are all the guys supposed to be back by next month, or do you know?
As far as I'm aware, I don't know of any absences in advance for December.
Okay.
You made a motion to table? You did make a motion?
No, I'd like to have a motion to table it.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we table this next work session for old business until
For a second,
Second.
the next meeting.
you want to call roll on this one?
Oh, sure.
Why not? We're
Sure, why
on.
not? Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Reppert,
Yes.
Mr. Terriaco,
Yes.
Mr. Wertel.
Yes.
Okay, motion is carried. Any abstentions? Any nays? None heard. Motion is carried. Next meeting, December 3rd, 2024. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay,
We did good.
we're adjourned.
That was a mouthful.
Did you say all in favor?